Welcome our viewer to our viewer to our watching today. This is the episode of the Digital Talk series. My name is Sambat. I am the Deputy Director of the Center for Inclusive Digital Economy at the Asian Vision Institutes, and I am the host of today's discussions. AVI is an independent think tank based in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and we strive to promote inclusive, people-centered, and sustainable society in Asia through practical policy research and dialogues. For those of you who are new to our program, the Digital Talk is a series of virtual discussions hosted by CIDE, which serve as a platform to disseminate expertise, experience, and knowledge on topics related to the digital economy in Cambodia. By doing so, we hope to contribute to Cambodia's visions of becoming a high-income country. I would like to inform our viewers that all opinions expressed by the speaker in these sessions are those of our guest speaker and not necessarily of AVI. Now let's get straight to our business. Today, we are talking about the role of big data in developing countries. And I am really fortunate to have with me one of the leading data scientists in Cambodia, Mr. Sokna. Mr. Sokna is a managing partner at Mekong Big Data, which is an advanced consultancy firm specialized in data science and project management in Phnom Penh. Good afternoon, Mr. Sokna. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Sambat. Thanks for the invitation and really great to be here.
Thank you. We are really grateful to have you with us today. So I would like to begin by asking you our first question, which is, can you please define what big data is?
Yeah, so to me, whether big data or small data, it's in a sense, it's data. But what's special about big data is the fact that, our industry, our, economy have grown so much that so much of the data have been generated in volumes, in the size of data that contributed what it called big data, which oftentimes people refer that as the size of the data that is so large that traditional data management tool cannot handle because of the size of the data. We are talking about the size larger than terabytes or even petabytes of data. So then traditional computers cannot handle those large amounts of data. And we also, when we're talking about big data, we're also referring to the variety of data. The variety is really referring to a number of sources that referring to, their file, their videos, their structured, unstructured data. So then there are a number of sources that increase the complexity of data that need us to actually monetize and utilize those data in a way that can drive value. And the third definition of more of the big data is really referring to the velocity. So we're talking about volume, we're talking about variety, and we're talking about the velocity. The velocity is referring to the speed of data generations. So then, a lot of the IoTs and data being generated pretty much consistently at the speed that, pretty much real time in moving at a very fast pace and in large volume across multiple sources. And so those three are pretty much main definitions of what referring to big data. I will add also the veracities and value. Veracities is referring how reliable is that data, how good is that data in terms of qualities. And that coming into play in terms of, if big data really driving the value and giving the value, and whether it's contribute to the way in which we make decision, improve our operational costs and so forth. So those five we are referring to what we call big data.
There is a popular saying today that data is the new oil because of its essentials in artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, known as IoTs. Do you agree with this statement? And can you tell us why?
Yeah, I remember when I was working pretty much in the United States, and this was like a big time for big data, where it really right, really giving the hypes. And I remember that article from The Economy saying data is the new oil, which claiming pretty much the world valuable resources no longer oil but data. And I mean, to a large extent, it's really the truth. If you're looking at the world right now, in the past 15, 20 years ago, when large company were no, not tech company, they were financial and industrial company that actually are large in terms of the market capitalizations. But if you're looking now, in terms of the top tens, we can see it's Google, it's Facebook, it's Amazon's, it's Microsoft. And the same go for in China as well. And we see Baidu, Tencent, and WeChat, Alipay are pretty much increasing their value. All of these companies, they have one things that is really distinguish them from the rest is really the amounts of data and the data that they have that reside, so that they can use to make value of their pretty much to inspire for innovations and growth for those companies, so they know how to utilize and monetize those data for their benefits, for their growth, for their opportunities. So I would say I even add data becoming the company asset that utilize to generate value, and have company looking at the market forces, finding pattern, improve their business decisions, so that it's improve their operational efficiency, as well as the growth and innovation with those companies. Or in a sense, it's similar role in a way that it's finite in terms of oils. Data is in accumulation is increasing, and more availability of data can be used. But at the same time, you need to refine in order to get value of it. So for oil, the same thing, you have to refine and make sure it get distributed for it to be used, right? So for data, it's the same thing. These amounts and huge amounts of data that are available, we actually have to how to store it, how to extract value from it, how to refine, and so forth, to drive insight and actions for the benefits of companies, everyone's, and government, and so forth. So those are pretty much referring to where we call it the new oil, because it fuel our economy, it fuel our company, it fuels the next generation of decision making that rely a lot more on evidence based than emotional based.
Thank you. A few moments ago, you just mentioned big companies such as Amazon, Tencent, Baidu, and Google, which, in my understanding, are competing and also in one way or another in the race in artificial intelligence. Can you explain us a little bit about the relationship between big data and AI?
They are almost like their relationship is pretty much complementary. They rely on each other. We almost think it as the a car, right? It's the AI is the engine, and data is the oil that fuel that car to move. And so the way how it works is you have artificial intelligence that allow human to be more intelligent, or allow company to make better business decisions, which rely on some of the application in AI, in the technique of using both data and algorithm to drive that intelligence. And so AI without data would not work. It relies that data to fit into the algorithm, so that it making predictions, it making or identifying the object in front of them, and so forth. So the more data that it fit into the AI engines, the better decision it reach out, and that helps drive the efficiency, drive innovation, and the way we do things, the way we operate business and so forth. So there are massive opportunities in the area for AI and big data in general. So you can see that the rise of the big data led to a even more better, improved AI system.
Because of the volumes and the velocities and also the power of big data in today's economy, we can see we can observe that big companies like Facebook have involved in some of the controversy regarding customer privacy. So my next question is, should we be concerned that about the implications that big data have on consumer privacy?
To some extent, especially in the Western country and regions where customer privacy become playing a major part and major role there. In over here, developing country, to some extent, more or less, but at the same time, customer privacy is very important. It's part of data, right? There is always some risk associating with storing and keeping data. But the question that we want to ask ourselves is, does big data contribute to more of an asset or a liability? Does it, bringing more value than it bridging risk, right? The term that you said around is data the new oil. Oil can be spilled, right? And it contribute to the environmental impact. Data, it have its risks, the fact that it could lost, it could impact the cybersecurity area where the loss of data can affect customer trust and the brand of the companies, and it also have regulatory risks as well, and some reputational. But at the same time, it's those customer privacy there's a role in which each and everybody need to have some responsibility of their own data, because there are some in which every time we need to confirm a term and condition, do we really read, or we just confirm and move on, and our pins and our password sometimes not one friend about it, but couples, and so we need to handle those sort of information, especially personal information, very carefully at individual level. And of course there need to be a larger regulations and as well as the company that need to look at the governance size of the data to ensure that data is being protected, safe and secure for customer. It's the company, what I call it, the company's desire as well, because it's protect the customer trust, and by protecting customer trust, customer have a better relationship and improve customer experience. And so for me, I see customer privacies are very important. It's not only the role of the individual to be careful of, but also the companies and the role of the governments and public sector to regulate in a way that it's not hamper innovation, but be safe in the economy.
Thank you for your really insightful explanations. Now I want to take your attention from big data in general to the case of big data in developing countries such as Cambodia. So my question is, why is big data important for a small country like Cambodia?
Thanks for the question. It's very interesting when we think about developing countries and developed country, and so I think in terms of the technology evolvement, there is no questions. It's will continue to grow and will continue to develop, and people will want to innovate. It's just human desire to progress, to move forward, to develop ourselves, and so. But regardless whether it's developing or developed economies, I think what exciting for me is really the legacy in developing country, that we tend to have less legacies, where developed economy would have large system that been built in the 80s, in the 60s, and it continue to use, and very hard to change because of the friction that it have already embedded across the private sectors and economies. And if you look at like small country like Cambodia, it have that opportunity to be among the first and among the some of the area where we even more innovative than other country. Take the case of Bakong by the National Bank of Cambodia, for instance, right? Utilizing the innovative solutions, blockchain-based technologies that facilitate the interbanking and encourage financial inclusion for everybody in Cambodia. And so that's ring the world. And as a Cambodian, I'm quite proud, and to the leaderships that put in place to have this kind of technology that solve real problems around financial inclusions, and improve the operational efficiency across the interbanking and payment settlement that utilizing this kind of technology. And so I see, yes, it's very important to leverage the technologies and the data areas, so that it helps from private companies to central bank to more public sectors area that can utilize to better service citizen, to better serve customers, and so forth. So it's actually quite exciting to look at it that way.
So you just mentioned, you raised the example of Bakong, which is an interbank payment system created by the National Bank of Cambodia. But I want you to be, I would like to be more specific in terms of other types of public services that the government can benefit from big data. So my next question is, what role does big data play for the public sector aside from the financial sector?
So I see the role of big data in the area of catalyzing change. So it accelerate, improve the efficiencies, things that put in place, and there's a lot of efficiency opportunity that it can gain to improve better of the decision making around how do we serve our population better, how do we provide services that on demand, on times, and improving the information transparencies for the population, so that everyone individuals get seamless service provisions. In the case of in the Ministry of Public and Public Work and Transportation as well. And so how can we utilizing those data and technologies to serve around or improve the citizen experience when they would renew or ask for driving license, for accessing their information of ownership and so forth. And so this area for what they call e-government in the industry of 4.0. And so how can the government and public sectors leverage technology and data to better serve citizens and identify the needs. The other case I want to raise is the ID Poor project. I think we work quite closely on that as well at Mekong Big Data. And so because we work very much from large blue chips companies to small startups and the public sectors and government as well, to drive the value from utilizing data. And the way ID Poor project work is pretty much to identify poor areas and poor families that their status may have changed, over the years, and so they need services that are more affordable then it's almost like becoming the glue parts of the social protections. And so and the technology using behind ID Poor project, it just amazed me so much, because I'm coming from the data area, and the system it used what I call graph database. And so this graph database, not many country that manage to leverage. And for country like Cambodia, it used this advanced cutting edge technology to better serve citizens, allowing the data in access in real time as soon as interview being made to identify some of the poor households, and especially during these COVID times, we don't know how many families that have changed their status. And so that's why the on-demand ID pool system really coming into play. And so yes, big data and technology and this digital system facilitate and help us to better serve citizens, better improve customer experience or citizen experience.
Thank you. So we've been talking about the benefits that big data bring to the public sector. I think because of right now, because of COVID-19 pandemic, we cannot ignore the fact that the pandemic has created really negative effects on every country in this world, including Cambodia. So my next question is that is it possible that big data can help countries like Cambodia fight the pandemic better?
I mean, I'm coming from private sectors, and I tend to be optimistic, and I see that data, believe it or not, it will facilitate and helps in many ways, but life would always be more important to ensure the food safety and food security, as well as the life of many other Cambodians that face real challenge, but at the same time we need to defend our economies. We need to protect this growth, that momentum that we have to date. And the utilization of data, many people actually wait, right, every morning, waiting the Ministry of Health to publish the information around cases and area that being affected. And so for me, one exciting area is utilizing data that improve the information transparencies, and because citizens want the accurate and up-to-date information around how do they protect their health and so forth. Is the area that they are being in now considered to be red, yellows, and so forth. So some sort of dashboard and information designed to help facilitate the mass of the population, easy to understand and easy to access information that they can track the number of cases, the number of factual case, as well as information how do they prepare and protect themselves. And we already have seen some of the simple but also powerful technology like QR code that put in place across some of the store to track the travel histories and so forth, to have serves and protects everyone's. And so yes, there's some place of the data to be in place, but at the same time there's a lot more other things beyond data that need to really serve and protect the populations. The other one I want to mention is on the vaccine, right? The speed at which it we be able to generate a vaccine. I'm talking about at a global scale. It takes years and years to actually get a vaccine, and with the pandemic and the contribution from big data and AI, it allow us to do those, monitor the clinical trial in real time, and see the test and validate the testings a lot faster and at a speed where it led to a vaccine that's I think in less than 1 year, right? So these are the sort of progress in technology and data area that allow us to do a lot faster and more efficient, and serve the population at large.
Thank you so much. I would like to look at reality on the ground. I mean, in terms of the scales and speeds that big data is being adopted in Cambodia. So, from your perspective, in the private sector, how fast is big data being adopted in Cambodia right now?
I would say we are at a very, very early stage in the adoption of big data. I remember 3 years ago when I was coming back from China, and was very much because of my experience, working across both developed economies and developing economies. I want to, bring this kind of advanced solutions, technology and data to Cambodia to have facilitate and drive the companies to make better decisions and drive value from data, pretty much make data pay, right? And when I first came, it's very rare. Pretty much I find no data scientists available in the market. But 3 years now, so we see actually some companies in the private sector actually have teams that are really working on data, big data, working on data science and modeling and applying AI into their business operation. And so I'm pretty optimistic on what the in the future will hold, and the opportunity that exists. At the same time, in terms of the adoptions, we starting to adopt more, but at the same time, we're facing a lot of challenge in this area as well, and we can talk more on the challenge side, of course. But in terms of the opportunity that it gives, it's really helps companies to understand their customer behaviors, to understand where opportunity exists in their business processes, so that they can improve the customer experience, identify risks that it may not be able to identify by just based on our experience in general, but by looking at the huge amount of data and trying to find pattern. And so requiring people with expertise and skills that know how to make sense of this data, and that's one of the reasons why Data U Academy, birthed out of Mekong Big Data to have facilitate and develop the expertise and our youth to develop skill and build a dream career for them to join these data revolutions and have our economies grow. Because if the populations and youth have skilled, not low output skill, but skill that actually have them obtain the employment opportunity, high paying jobs, so then they increase their salary band to a different bracket, and that helps not only themselves, also their family, and so also the economy as well. And what we find unique in Cambodia is also the fact that families or Cambodian in general, they would attribute about 30% of their income to their family. And so with them jumping into a new salary bracket, helping themselves not and also their families, what it means for the country, it's exciting.
You mentioned a few moments ago about educations and data. So because that is the segue that I'm going to right now. Because my next question is involving the resources, the types of resources. I mean, human resources, financial resources, and other types of resources that Cambodia need in order to take advantage of big data. So my question is, what are the major resources that our country needs in order uh, to be ready and also to adopt big data in a much broader scale?
Um, let's think it this way, right? Because the automations or technology progress, it's day by day we see that rate exponential. So it's more or less it will comes, and Cambodia is trying to become the high income country in 2050, right? Like you established out early on. And so to really get there we would need lots and lots of skill and resources to have function the economies and develop our economy to high income based, high skill and high output that can be export out as well. And so one area that we're looking at Data U Academy is how can we establish Phnom Penh, Cambodia being that center for data science excellence in the region. What it does for IT in India, we want to do the same what it does for data in Cambodia. And in Cambodia is hold that unique advantage around the populations, so over 75% of those that actually below 30 are youths. And so we have that young population that desire and hungry for skill. And so if everyone being encouraged and graduate get education around STEM field and going to build skill in data, in technology, in a lot of the high skill that generate high output. I think there's opportunity that Cambodia can sort of like capture this area. And so we're going to need a lots of talents and skill to have facilitate the demand from the private sector, because a country is strong require strong private sector involvement and private sector economy as well. And so private sector do need a lot of high skills and just skill availability to have them in marketing, in sales, in technology, in new product development and so forth. And the same go for in the government sector as well. The more people and the more individual understand basic data, basic the technology, like referring to the digital literacy and data literacy, it help them to protect themselves, and it help them to make better decisions, and data power the digital economy. And so the resources will depend a lot with educations, skill development, and it require quite the sort of involvement from both the partnerships, privates and publics and government, join hand in hand to work to resolve the problem, because education is expensive, particularly for private sector to let's bring this new area, big data into place. It take quite a chunk of times, and it also require a chunk of effort as well. And so that education piece would sort of like how can we come together and to increase that awareness, and as well as the adoption of technology that have facilitate the economic process throughout the country.
Thank you so much. That leads me to my very last question, which is what role does big data play in Cambodia visions of becoming a high income country in 2015?
So moving into quite a long terms, but then at the same time, I see that economic recovery that everyone would sort of fight and protect the economies, and especially during these times in pandemic. But at the same time, it's also an opportunity where how can our youth and our population getting more skills and teach themselves of some of the basic technology, how to use and sort of adopt the way in which it can help us from day to day usage, as well as decision making in general. And so moving into the sort of future, we would need a lot of talents, and to become that high income country. Each individuals would going into the one is education being the one of the top area where people will need to find the employment opportunity, and as well as some that require the upskill and reskill themselves as well. Because I take the case of Siem Reap, for instance, right? We heavily relied on tourism for a long time, right? And there are even forecasts and sort of like foresee that there one point, we cannot just rely on tourism. So the sort of the pandemic sort of proof it in a sense. And so what we are working at the moment with the German development agencies to have the population of Siem Reap and youth to really upskill in digital technologies and digital skills on the data literacy area, so that they find new economics opportunity. And this day, because of the pandemic, it's not a nice to have working from home. It's more like a must have, a must know. It's how can we adapt ourselves to working from home. And so this opportunity where we are building right now is a remote working opportunity. And so with youth working from homes and acquire skills that sit in Cambodia and be able to leverage their skill and working at the salary rate of in Australia's or America's or Singapore, and leverage the fact that their skill are globally relevant and sitting in Cambodia remotely. I think it presents huge opportunity. What that means for their for themselves and as well as the economies. So that's the futures that I'm very excited for, and at Mekong Big Data and Data U, where we are building, contributing to that future.
Thank you so much for your really insightful and helpful explanations of the role of big data in Cambodia visions in 2050. This is the end of our fourth installment of the Digital Talk series. I would like to thank our guest, Mr. Sopna, for his participation today. We really appreciate your engagement with AVI. And thank you everyone for watching this video. If you have any topics that you would like us to cover in the next episode, please let us know in the comment down below. And if you're looking for more information,